This is our opportunity to reset, and that's what we're going to go through today. So initial thoughts are, well, it's very difficult times faced by every business at the moment. You've had to close or carried on working. Either way, it's been a difficult time. We've had clients who've been overwhelmed with work. They've got too much on, and they've had to look at how they can cope with too much work coming in. We have had some clients who've been in that fortunate situation. But there's other businesses that have not been so lucky, and they've had to look at whether they kind of carry on or shut down and furlough people. But we're going to look at a bigger picture and what effects that has on everyone. Every business is facing massive issues, but every issue can also be looked on as an opportunity. The sorts of issues that we're looking at call for some creative or innovative thinking. Can we use technology to help us? Are people required to do things differently? Are there applications in different areas? It's not just manufacturing that's been it. There's manufacturing, the supply chain, the people who are involved with the businesses. There's the service centres. Service sectors have been hit as well. So training, healthcare, etc. And when you get a kind of business interruption, like a disaster event, there's two things you can do. You can either try and go around the wall, or you can try and go over it. And innovative people try and look and see, well, the wall's there. Can we actually just get over it and get to the other side? So when we're on the other side, what are we going to do differently? So sort of innovations that we've seen in the short term, lots of people doing things on Zoom, digital platforms, looking at reducing costs, furloughing employees. Looked at what the people have been doing, key workers. We looked at people speeding up the delivery, changes in delivery processes. We've had companies, we're going to go through an example today of increasing efficiency and looking at changes in supply chains. So, can you necessarily afford to be relying on long distance supply chains? We're looking at shorter supply, looking at local, being able to be more agile. So we're seeing lots of changes like that so far. It's a new world, or it will be. We're slowly getting there. We've seen some changes as of yesterday. There's going to be some more changes in 2 weeks' time. I'm thinking that by the end of July, going into August, we'll probably be looking at what the new world is. We'll have moved from that crisis into recovery. But we need to adapt to that new world now. Unfortunately, we might well be in a position that we don't know what it looks like, even in the short term, never mind in the long term. So what does that mean? It means we've got to be agile. We've got to be agile in what we're doing. And what we're doing now is firefighting. We've got fires coming up every day. We haven't got data available. We don't really know how to plan. We're flying by the seat of our pants. We're having to be reactive to all the influences that are coming up in the business. A minute, yeah, I'll just let Amanda in. Amanda's joining. So we've had technology that's evolved during the lockdown. It has evolved, and it's still evolving. So things like Zoom. I think somebody said to me the other day, it changes every time we go on it. The buttons are in a different place. Things work differently, and our use of it is changing daily. There's some platforms better than others. I was delivering webinars for MRC yesterday. They've got an in-house system called Blackboard, similar to Zoom, but it's awful. the sort of problems we were getting on that yesterday were the latency was so bad that they're actually setting up an echo from my speakers through back onto the microphone, and it was it was a second or so out, not just milliseconds. So hopefully we've not got problems like that now. I noticed that we've got a few people with their hands still up. If you could put your hands down and then put your hands back up if you are having issues with any sound or anything, or hopefully it's better than so we've not got any problems today that like we had on Blackboard yesterday. I finished up yesterday talking about doing things differently and doing things on the cuff. It was I finished up turning my speakers off and having to put my my earphones on, plugging my earphones in so that we could communicate, because with speakers on it just didn't work at all. So technology is changing, working methodologies evolving, we're having to think on the hoof. Working times are changing, shifts are changing, people are working from home, and we've got social distancing. So these are all the things that we're having to look at now. And it's an opportunity to look for, we looked at continuous improvement before, now we're looking at continuous adaptation. So the opportunities to innovate, collaborate, and look at new applications for what we do. How many people made social distancing? How many people made social distancing screens 2 months ago? Yeah, all of a sudden, we've got people who seen the opportunity, gone into it, and now they're making these social distancing screens. I think I had a horror story from one of our clients yesterday about a piece of perspex. I don't know, do you want to tell us your experience on that? So just a minute, I'll mute you, Duncan, and if you want to tell us what your experience was on about unmute. There you go.
Can you hear me, Mike?
Yeah, can hear you now. So
well, basically, basically I was doing something. My wife's a florist, and I was putting something around her desk, if you like. And went to Direct Plastics, and they'd only got one sheet of 12mm left, clear perspex, and they charged me £360 for it. So I thought that was, very good. And that was all they got left. So goodness knows where people are going to go for it at the moment. So I think they're just cashing in on the circumstances at the moment.
Yeah. So perspex is the new toilet rolls. So there isn't any about, and people are charging what they want on it. So there's you've got to redesign what we do in terms of processes, structure, the staffing, how we do things, what materials we use, what the supply chain that we use. Our interactions with customers have got to change, and our operations. So if we're going to change our operations, I'm going to start using kind of lean techniques and bring lean in here, because why would you want to use lean? Because if we're looking at continuously adapting and improving things, COVID's changed everything around us, so we've got to adapt. Our expectations have changed, our existing customer expectations have changed, and our potential new customer expectations have changed. So we need to change to accommodate that. And one thing I've found throughout my experience is firefighting can be really dangerous, especially if you become good at it, because you become good at fighting the fires and not preventing them. So the new normal is not firefighting. What we want to do, the new normal, is we want to plan for it, and we want to get we want to prevent the fires from happening rather than be good at putting them out. So what we need to do is we need to look at solutions so that we can put some measurements in place and look at what short-term measures we can use to help our decision-making processes going forward. So what makes a lean company? And is the answer different now than what it would have been in March? Typically we'll look at efficient operations, teamwork, waste reduction. I want to talk about what waste is later on in this webinar. We'll look at a Kaizen improvement, continuous improvement Kaizen philosophy. And that means getting the right culture, the right environment in the business, and we work on small incremental improvements. We're looking at a lean philosophy. Putting it simply, we want to provide goods or services demanded by the customer using only those resources that are absolutely necessary. It sounds simple, but many companies fail to become truly lean because they don't have an environment to implement and maintain it. We've got a load of tools and techniques that we can use, and I've just highlighted in red some of the ones I'm going to talk about today, and the ones which you see as being particularly kind of relevant. And the main one, we're looking at value stream mapping. We said in the strategy workshop last week that we need to identify what's our value proposition to our customers. What is it that we do that sets us aside? Why do our customers actually deal with us? When you decided what that added value is, we then need to map all the steps in how we actually do it. There's other things in there. There's the waste. We're going to look at what the 7+1 wastes are and how we can try and reduce them. With potentially 5S, which is a technique for workplace organisation, again getting rid of waste. We're going to look at Kaizen and continuous improvement, more in the final workshop than in this one. Process mapping as the step towards value stream mapping. Once you've identified what the value stream is, then pulling your process map together of how you actually achieve it. I'm going to talk about plan, do, check, act as a cycle, visual management, root cause analysis. There's some other tools in there that all contribute towards lean. And we'll pick the ones, or you can pick the ones which are particularly applicable to you guys. So to identify the wasteful practices, a fundamental principle, we'll look at what the waste is that we've got in our process and help us to deliver the value added that our customers want to pay us for. Where do we start? Well, understanding and mapping the process that we do. So look at what our value is to our customer, and then map out how we actually do it. And if you can see on these slides, it's actually a bit small on my laptop screen, so I'm just going to sort of squeeze over a bit, then I can read off these screens. Hopefully that you can still hear, but we start off with voice of the customer on that. We look at what the customer demand is, what our customer requirements are, if we've got any service level agreements that we need to maintain, and identify any customer complaints. I've got one. I mean, it's one supplier that I've got that is absolutely doing things the wrong way altogether. Has anybody else bought any plants from Thompson and Morgan online? Does anybody want to put any hands up if you bought any, or or even if you've heard of Thompson and Morgan, they sell plants online. And when all the garden centres were closed, I thought it were a good idea. One of my brainwaves that well, if we order them online, they'll send us our plants, and then we normally put some hanging baskets around the place and make the house and then make the garden in particular look quite nice. So we ordered 200 odd quid's worth of plants from Thompson Hood. So I thought that's going to be great because there were lots of different types of plants, fuchsias, begonias, whatever, just bedding plants, put in pots, put in hanging baskets. 200 odd quid's worth. Thought that'll just make a nice pallet load that they can deliver from Norwich, along with some peat, along with some lawn feed and weed. So all supposed to be in stock when we clicked online and ordered it. They started to get some warning bells when they said stuff were going to be delivered sometime in May. All right, so we might have to wait 2 or 3 weeks while we get through. Then when we sort of got the order, went into our order online, other stuff was being delayed. Now they're talking about another 14 days delay. We've got some items which they've sent. They sent 2 lots of plants, but 4 lots of plants haven't come yet. They haven't sent the compost, and they're not answering their emails. They're not answering the telephone. They're saying, please send us emails. We've been inundated, and when you send an email, you get an automated email back saying, we can't answer emails. It's going to be 7 to 10 days turnaround to answer emails. But yet every day I get spam in my inbox from Thompson and Morgan trying to sell more plants. Like if they didn't bother sending out the new stuff and just spent more people, getting the plants that they got out to customers. The ones which they did send, they sent them out just before a bank holiday in the post. So, and they just posted them. It took 6 days over a bank holiday to actually arrive. So by the time the plants that they did send got here, they were pretty shriveled. So that's an idea, of how not to do things. I've been complaining to them. They've not acknowledged it. They've not done anything. I've actually, if you go on Trustpilot now, I've actually left them a one-star review and saying, I'll never deal with them again. But that's what you get by not picking up your customer complaints. So what you want to do is, if you do get any complaints, deal with them. Pick them up. Make sure that the client's satisfied at the end of the day. So listen to what your customers are wanting. All we wanted were all those plants sending together, and we can put them in displays rather than some, and then others going to arrive later. And then when deliveries have just gone out and out, we want to talk to somebody and they're not even prepared to talk. So as far as I'm aware, as far as I'm concerned, it's just a 1-star review, and I'll tell people all about the bad service that I've had. So the next thing is any kind of ideas and issues that you've got, you can plug those in. No matter where you get them from, you're either going to get them from your customers or your internal people. So what we're going to put together is an information flow. What triggers what within the business? Put a process map together. You see on that picture that's on the screen, often called a brown paper exercise. You start from start to finish. Draw it, do it with post-it notes on the wall, and then get all your process down, no matter whether you're manufacturing or service, step by step on the wall with all the interactions together, and then look at what the issues are within that. even by drawing it out, you will identify the things that you think can then be improved. When we did our ISO system back in 2015, because we put ISO systems in lots of different companies, and tailors are always the worst dressed men. We didn't have ISO 9001 for our organisation. When we did it, we did process maps for all our internal processes, and we identified that we weren't being consistent, and we also identified that there were things within our processes that we could improve. So even we weren't perfect. Hopefully we've improved things now for our consultants and for our clients. So yeah, we maintain that. And when we get any comments from our consultants or from our clients, we take them into account. If we can change things, we will. It's fairly simple to do. I say we're using post-it notes, different colours. I've got these on my desk because now when I'm talking to people on Zoom, I can just put it on a red post-it note, and then I know what I've got to pick up afterwards. And then I can make sure I get them done. But typically you use yellow for individual processes, red for any issues, green for any potential solutions, and just build your process map up. Don't try capturing it on software until you've done it on the traditional old-fashioned method on the brown paper, because you'll find you'll be changing it that much on the software. So you can see what the ideas and issues are within your business, and you can also play what ifs. Look at, can we fix this? Can we do it slightly differently? Can we change things? We've also got things like Boston Matrix, so you're looking at your different products that you've got within or services that you offer, so identify them all simply on a chart, using all the people within your organisation. Once you've got the issues, you can start looking at what the solutions might be, and again model that and see what you can do to improve things in your processes. Think about them. Do we think about our processes? Do we evaluate what we do? And when we're looking at non-value added activity, you've got to make sure what it is you're actually trying to get rid of. Anything that's adding value to your client, to your customer, is anything that's adding value is what you want to do. Anything that's not adding value is potential waste, and we'll look at what we can do to remove or reduce it. Things sort of waste that we've got in our processes now. I mean, the people that we've got, how much of their time is being wasted? Do we realise now that new ways of working? How much time have people been wasting into travelling to work? I mean, how many people, just a show of hands now, are doing more work from home than they were? You just put your hand up if you're doing more work. So yeah, Jamie, Ali. So other people still going into the office, or still travelling into work? How much time have people been spending, or have your employees been spending travelling into work? And are people more productive when they're working at home? What we do that does not add value to customer requirement is a waste. What we've got to look at is how we identify it and eliminate it, and we understand that in the mapping process that we do. So we draw out that value stream map to the customer. So how do we match customer needs with your processes? The main process that we used on the project that we're going to use as an example is balancing the line, or balance. You can do this on balancing the process. So what we do is eliminate waste out of the operations, potentially resequence things, change layouts where necessary, balance the line. I want to talk about what we mean by that in the next slide, but we can look at improving it, continuously improving it, and what we need to do is get that vision for the future. The example that I'm going to use is a situation that might be in a typical manufacturing company. We've got a part that needs to be turned, milled, drilled, assembled and packed, and I've put down there typically it might be 20 minutes on turning, 40 minutes on milling, 15 minutes on drilling, 45 minutes on assembly and 12 minutes to pack. And if you set that up as an assembly line, then what actually happens is that it's not balanced. So we'll look at, let's say we want 60 of these a week. So customer demand in a 40-hour week, we want one every 40 minutes. And so actually your milling guy's got a comfortable job. So his job actually just fills the time that he's got available. Your turning guy, your drilling guy, you know, they have plenty of time to their time's being wasted and time wasted in packing. But what about the guy in assembly? He's got to do 45 minutes work, but he's trying to do it in 40 minutes. So what happens to him? He gets rushed. He makes mistakes. He does things wrong, and we generate other areas of waste as well. We might generate additional work in progress as things pile up behind him. So what we try and do is balance demand. So if your people were multi-skilled, we could say, well, somebody could do some turning, then he's got some spare time, so he'll do some milling. We've got somebody else who can do some milling and then do some drilling. The guy who's doing some drilling, and then he can fill his time with assembly. So we stack it together like that. And what we find by doing that is that where we previously had 5 people, you actually can do that job with 4 people by them all being multi-skilled. And what we do is set up a system in a U-shaped cell with people moving around, and you can do this with paperwork. You can do it with other processes as well, not just manufacturing. It's just easier to demonstrate with manufacturing. So what you previously had 4 people and waste, previously had 5 people and waste, you've now got 4 people. But also, if you look at what the demand is, your customer demand is still the same. Those 4 people are still not fully utilised. So you're only utilising them at 80% anyway. But what you've done is you've taken a lot of waste out of the system. So there's an opportunity for cost reduction by redistributing work and eliminating waste. So there's less overtime, less transport, faster throughput and less people required. And that came through analysing what the process was, looking at what the customer demand was, what was the customer looking for, and then identifying what the waste was. The particular project that we're looking at, they've restarted work now, and they're actually getting 30% or 33%, a third of their previous output, with just 25% of the employees back in. So what they've used, and I use a different acronym for the 8 waste, 7+1. The one which John uses, and bear in mind there's a John slides, it's us win 2, so unused talent, scrap, waiting, inventory, motion, transportation, over processing and over production. These are all the things that are waste in your in any potential product or service. The main one is unused talent. So using the people that you've got. We all come to work with 2 arms, 2 legs and 1,000,000 brain cells. And what proportion do we ask people to use them in? We don't often ask them to use the 1,000,000 brain cells that they've got for the good of the process or the customer. We try and get rid of scrap. So we're stopping things, we're stopping mistakes, we're stopping rework. We want to stop things being done wrong in the first place, so we have to redo them. Waiting was the big one in the previous example. That you know, these guys will be waiting for almost half the day, waiting for something to come. A nice steady job. And I say this guy, he's the one who's got 40 hours working 40 hours, and this one is either rushing or he's working overtime. So so the waiting, the inventory. So where you've not got balance lines, inventory builds up behind the bottleneck. So where we've got this guy passing them on to drilling, as soon as drilling's done them, pass them on to assembly. Assembly's getting behind. Your inventory is going to pile up in this area. And what we do on a value stream map is walk through the process and identify what all the pieces of work or piece of information. So it's easy to do with physical components, but with orders, you can look at orders through a system and look at where your orders are piling up, and you know, whose desk are they on, at what stage of the process are the orders that are being processed through the system, and you'll then identify where the bottlenecks are, and what we can try and do then is reduce inventory. Try and reduce motion, so people having to move about to actually do the job. If they can do all the job in the same place, or moving the piece of paper or moving the components around, doing too good a job on them. Believe it or not, you know, from a quality perspective, you can do things too well, and you can do too many things. Because if you're supposed to make 100 parts, you make 105, because you might lose some, as we used to do at David Brown's example that I use. So we try and reduce that level of waste. So what we're looking at is joined up improvements, and the net effect of all these little improvements is to benefit the whole end-to-end value chain. So that was line balancing. Has anybody used line balancing in their operations or come across it before? No. Anybody see the opportunity for balancing the line in their operations? So I don't know whether Dunk, are you still there, and any opportunity in specialised, or Brian, do you wanna come in there? Just a minute. I'll unmute you. There you go.
No, I was just agreeing with you. There's always loads of other opportunities, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, Dunk, have you got any comments on line balancing? I'll just unmute you.
Not a lot, no. to be honest.
Right. So on yours, I mean, do you know where the bottlenecks are in your operations? So, when you're getting an inquiry in, getting it out to the customer, getting the order back in, and then from the order, doing the drawing, then issuing it to shop floor, getting it cut, and then through any process on shop floor and then out. Where does work typically build up in your organisation?
At the moment, Mike, because we're a bit down on normal business sort of levels, we haven't actually got a bottleneck at the moment. It's just coming in, processing it, and getting it out to the customer.
Yeah.
So yeah, we haven't really got any bottlenecks at the moment. I suppose looking back, where we are generally, I think the amount of people we've got, we don't get a lot of bottlenecks.
Right. And what have you done then to remove the bottlenecks? Because I know you've balanced the line all the way through from the guys who do the drawings, the guys who do the programming, the guys who get the material ready for the shop floor. So you've looked at how many people you need in each area, so that it does literally, and I know this because we've worked with you, it goes like bump, 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 straight through from one to another, and you are able to turn work around very quickly for your customers, aren't you?
Yes, and we've invested some time with more skills for other people as well, so that, like, typically now, there's probably a couple of people here who could slip into different roles if they need to.
Yeah.
So we sort of deal with it as we go along.
Yeah, because you've got, this is what I was saying, you've got that multi-skilled, so people can move from, if you've got more programming than drawing, people can move from programming to drawing. You've got people who are entering the orders at the front end, who can also do part of the drawing. So people can flex from order entry to drawing to programming. All that front end is pretty agile, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, very much so, yeah.
Yeah. So that's why you can get work in from a customer, and for those who know, it's a laser cutting company, and one of your main USPs, Dunk, is being able to turn work around for customers very quickly, isn't it? And get it in through the system and cut back out to customers very quickly. And so if I were to come to you with a part that I needed making, I need some of them cutting. How long would it take you to give me a price, and then once you give me a price that were acceptable, how long would it take you to get something out to the back to me cut?
Well, to be fair, I'd like to think that we'd get you an inquiry back, a simple inquiry like that back within a few hours.
Yeah.
And if you were absolutely desperate, we could, because once when we do the inquiry, we've actually prepared everything for production. So if you rang up and said, yes, I'd like to place the order, you've only got to just create the paperwork and it can go straight on the shop floor and be cut. You could cut it tonight if you wanted to.
Yeah. So what you've done, you've identified what your customer requirements are. People want quick prices back, and to be able to turn stuff around quickly, get it back to them. And you've got a multi-skilled workforce there, which I know of people who can drop into different roles. To, if you're getting a backlog of work at any one area, you can drop onto that and then blitz it through and make sure that nothing's getting behind, and your people know to look for it and just do it without thinking.
Yeah, I'd like to think so, yeah.
Yeah, because if they don't do it without thinking, you give them a bollocking. I know, it's got the systems are in place to monitor the build up of work, and your guys do pick it up and process it through quickly. So, but that's testament to the kind of years. It don't just happen that. There's been years of kind of honing that system and making sure it works. So that's your way of dealing things. Neil, how many people have you got in your organisation, and how do you control them to be agile?
Just two of us, so it's pretty easy to motivate us and get us streamlined, really. But we deal with a lot of external people as well, like to get projects done. So keeping on top of them and getting them, like I say, on the same level is can be challenging sometimes.
Yeah. How many people have you got, Phil? Oh, where are we?
Do you mean how many people have we got in total?
Yeah.
So there's Darryl and I as the directors, and then we've got 10 people working with us.
Yeah. And how multi-skilled are the people in your organisation?
I would say not very multi-skilled, because the developers develop, the project managers manage projects, the sales team get on with getting out the door and finding the opportunities.
Yeah.
So although I come from a manufacturing background, where I am a turner, a miller, a driller, and I have worked in packaging and welding as well, there isn't an easy way to apply people to do multiple tasks here. But in my situation, because we're a software company, there is more to do than can ever be done, and we can always go back and polish and improve and sharpen, and our clients are paying for that because they pay annual service fees for usage of the software, and also for us maintaining it and keeping it going. So it's a difficult, I understand your analogy about the lean processes, but it's a little bit trickier in our industry, simply because developers are very highly skilled developers, not really able to flex left. And I would never put a developer in front of a client to try and sell them something. They just simply don't have that skill. In fact, most of them are actually frightened of people.
Yeah. So it's making sure they've got the right skills to do that job, and it is easier in Duncan's case for people to flex between but even that, that's on the front end of your process with getting work into the machine. What about yourself, Amanda? So, hiya, good afternoon. You all right?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah. At the moment, there's 4 of us. There is some multi-skilling across, I would say, in the office. My partner, Darren, he's probably the most multi-skilled in that he could do the sales, the installs, service calls, and some of the office work. So there is some multi-skilling, but perhaps there is some other opportunities that that we can look at.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Right. Good. Well, what I want to move on to next is Lean Six Sigma. And has anybody come across Six Sigma before? If you want to just give us a show of hands if you've come across it, if you know a lot about it, put your hand down. If you've just heard of it, leave your hand up. So right. So we've either got Dunk, you've ticked. Is that you've got a tick on there, Dunk?
Sorry, yeah. I thought you said just tick it if you've just heard of it. Yeah, because I've heard of it, but I've no idea what it is.
Right. So people have typically heard of it, but don't know a great deal about what it is. And a lot of people think it's not for them. But one of the things I like about Six Sigma, and particularly Lean Six Sigma, is it provides a structured approach for solving problems and a toolkit, and it gives you a description of a performance level. So the 6 steps of Six Sigma, the steps of Six Sigma. The first step is actually defining what the problem is. So once you've identified that there's an issue, that's something that you want to improve, the next step is getting some measurements. So let's put some lines in the sand. Let's identify what the situation is now and analyze the situation, because once we've analyzed it, we can then look at what we need to do to improve and implement that improvement. And then once we've improved it, what we need to do then is control it and make sure that we keep it to the improved state. So we're going to look at different issues and opportunities that can be at different points, any different time, but they should pass through each of these stages. And if you don't do them all, then you don't get the best results. So if you don't define what the problem is, and you set off taking some measurements, what your measurements are going to be of. So once you define the problem, you can then get the right measurements. Don't just define, if you miss getting the measurements, what you're analysing what the problem is. So making sure you've got the measurements is important. Analysis, if you just define the problem, got some measurements, and then look at improve them without doing that analysis. And then once you've improved it, you want to make sure that you put controls in place to actually keep doing it. And so we just think about it by stages. And so, first thing is defining, reducing all the possible areas down to those most critical, and think about them from the business and the customers. We measure the variables that we can define as being critical and map out what the process is, get measurements at each point. Well, this is the difference between process mapping, or a big difference between process mapping and value stream mapping. If you start off with a process map and then put some measurements on it, is what I like to do. So mapping out the process, you might just do it with post-it notes on a piece of brown paper, like we said originally. But measure where the workflow is, and that's one of the things that will identify what your bottlenecks are, and look at what the critical variables are. So once you've got the critical variables, then analyze the possible causes and narrow down to a few key root causes. Then you look at doing the improvements, brainstorming possible solutions, working with employees and with customers and suppliers, so you can narrow them down to what the best options are. And then the last bit is putting the controls in place. Once you've got there, make sure that the improvements can't slip back. So using the theory, we're starting off with lean principles, customer value, happiness. How do we delight the customer? And then we start looking at how do we do that efficiently. And that comes back to what I was saying, one of the earlier webinars, difference between efficiency and effectiveness. You getting your customer value and your happiness is the effectiveness, how you delight the customer, being effective in what you do. And then the next bit is doing that efficiently, getting rid of all the wasteful practices in the things that you're doing. And what you need to do that is get the proper culture and being agile, innovative, and looking at continuous improvement, as we said at the beginning. Continuous adaptation is what we're going to have to look at. So continuous adaptation going forward. So in the short term, the things that we need to be looking at, we've got to be doing risk assessments to look at the way that we're actually working. We need to be looking at social distancing. And one of the things that can particularly come into play in that is doing 5S and visual management. So if you use trays or inboxes or whatever, inboxes on your computer, and get measurements so you can see how many orders are there, how many pieces of paper need processing, and you can identify then if anything is building up and manage it accordingly. It's easier to manage the physical components, but you can still do visual management techniques, inboxes for purchase orders, invoices, dispatch, delivery notes, etc. At each stage of your process, it's then easier to manage it if you set it up in a visual way. So lean means doing more with less, as we've said before. So we had the previous process where we had 5 people, we balanced the line, we could do it with 4 people, and none of those 4 people were actually being particularly pushed to do the effort that they were achieving. And it's all about working smarter rather than harder. It's not about whipping people and making them work harder. It's about getting rid of the things that are stopping them from doing the job effectively. So we focus on value added to the customer. And yeah, this is no John put link to MB value proposition strategy on presentation. So yeah, this is the link to what I was putting in the strategy workshop about the value proposition. So what is your value proposition? What is your customer actually buying from you? Focus on that, and then look at how we can do that effectively. So or efficiently. We'll identify the waste within the process. We'll think process. We'll make sure we get the process right so that it just flows from one to another, and we're being agile. We're all in survival mode, but we all do need to think. And if we don't, then you can be damn sure that our competitors will. So we need to be one stage ahead. And we're going to be talking, I know later on in the presentation, about being a leader rather than a follower. If you're not fighting fires, you can then actually start to be proactive. You can be looking at the environment, you can be looking at what's happening, you can make sure that you're doing it first, so you're doing it before people rather than letting them do it and then you playing catch up. So think process. Although you're in survival mode, you still need to do the thinking, and if you don't think, then your competitors will. So the more process orientated you can be, the less firefighting that you need to do, the more you can stay ahead of the competition. So using the theory, you've done the firefighting that you needed to start from the reset. Opportunities are going to come along, and we need to be able to take them. So at least gather some information and schedule what you're going to do. So collect things that are coming in. When you're getting opportunities, record them. So put them on one side. You know, these are things that we might not be able to do it at the moment, but we do want to look at picking it up at some point. We can make a decision to innovate to solve that problem, re-engineer, or do it full time, not as a one-off. So are we going to do it as a one-off process, or are we going to introduce it into how we develop things? And what we're talking about is actually developing the culture within the organisation. So again, what do we think about the culture that we've got within our organisations? Phil, I mean, I know you have meetings, regular meetings with all your employees, Phil. So how do you tackle problem solving in Target? Yeah, you.
Okay, so we do have regular meetings. We have monthly one-to-ones with all members of staff.
Yeah.
We have bi-monthly company meetings where we go out for lunch and then we go shooting or go karting or doing something to team building, and we sit down after that and we run through just communicating with people. We really about our culture is about trying to get everything out in the open, and in our business everybody knows everything about the business with the exception of what's actually in the bank and what dividends Darryl and I take out the business. Otherwise everything is accessible by everybody. So that open, particularly at these kind of times where people are worried about COVID in the future, that transparency is really giving them real peace of mind that their jobs aren't immediately in threat, that we're going to be here for some time. Everybody can see the budget, everybody can see an indication of where we are financially, and that it's that transparency and openness which has really built a great culture within the business.
Yeah, and I know that's one of the reasons why I asked you first, Phil, because I know you've got a really good culture within your organisation. And I mean, don't you've got something similar, haven't you? You know, with your guys.
Yeah, we have morning meetings, just probably rather with managers as opposed to all the staff, to be honest. But yeah, we get that feedback from shop floor to the production manager. We bring that to the table. We look at sales, where we're going. Production talk to sales, and it's all about everybody just being like Phil said. It's all about communication within the company, really, and people getting an understanding. And I wouldn't say they've got an understanding as deep as what Phil's has, to be fair. But no, we've got a system in place that communication's good. Yeah.
And likewise, Amanda, I mean, I think your communication in Amanda's blinds is pretty tight.
Yeah, it's we have do. I know we're only a small company, but we do have. Well, before the lockdown, we did have monthly meetings, opportunity things that share things that are going well. Some of the customer satisfaction reviews and things that were celebrated and shared. So yes, I think that probably again, maybe an opportunity just to tighten up a few little one-to-one meetings and things like that. I think, but generally we're there anyway, at any time. Yeah.
Right. I'm gonna throw Dom under the bus now and say, what's communication like in Brook Corporate Developments?
I want to be truthful. I don't. No, I'm only joking. No, it's great. We run a fairly tight ship. We're, to be fair, the 3 core members of staff that are in the office all the time that are looking at pipeline and opportunities and contracts and forecasting is me, you, and Diane. So it's relatively easy to keep communication quite tight because there's not a huge supply chain of different departments that you need to pull together. But we make sure that we go through our forecasting and go through our pipeline and monthly forecasts at least once a week. If we can't then do it because of diary, we make sure we do at least every fortnight, and that gives us action points for the week to go away and chase up various clients or reignite an old flame if there's a project that's kind of died down that we need to pick back up again. So I'd like to think that we keep it fairly close knit and tight.
Yeah, good answer. Brian, from a consultant point of view, I mean, what about communication and culture that we've got? How do we do it? And I'm not just looking for, I'm looking for the bad points as well as the good. And feel free, you know what it's like.
I think it's a weird organisation to try and compare because we're associates rather than employees. So the communication culture is certainly there, but it's there whenever you want it. You kind of almost, we've got a series of regular meetings and a series of regular documents. But then it's really up to the individual, isn't it? If I keep on nudging you in the ribs, you will without a doubt respond within 24 hours. If I leave you alone for 2 months, then you'll not be pestering me. So, it's kind of a very well understood communication, I suppose, in a lot of ways, which, if you want the good point out of that is the trust.
Mm.
You know, we've got a way of communicating, so clearly there's a communication policy that everybody understands, or at least I think I do.
Yeah.
I suppose if there's anything negative, sometimes I don't know what the core part of the business is doing. But again, that's partly my fault, isn't it? Sometimes I don't know because I don't know to ask the question, and sometimes I just haven't got a clue.
Yeah.
But I could always ask.
Yeah.
So no, I don't know. You know, I think it's got a good, pretty open but please yourself communication structure in Brook.
Yeah, because one of the things that I try and do is not be on people's back, and you get a task to do and not be told how to do it. You know, it's kind of, I will tell you what to do, you know, if you want me to, but I don't want to tell you what to do. Well, sorry, I want to tell you the result that we want, not how to do it. You know, and I'm hoping that the people on our team, and you know, it's generally borne out by experience, are reliable. They're the ones who pick up and actually, you know, do what it says on the tin, and they don't need close supervision. But when we do come back together, hopefully we'll throw the issues that we've got on the table and talk through them at our regular meetings with all the associates, and solve things that we can then you know, put best practice in place, and hopefully keep it in place. That's what we try and do anyway. And I know, you know, that's what Phil does with his team, and Duncan does with his team. So that's what it's trying to get that culture within the organisation. So
that's key.
Yeah,
That is absolutely key to communication, no matter what.
Yeah. So, and having that freedom, and as Phil said, you know, the openness and honesty that's got to be in the organisation. I know Phil does it really well with his organisation, to be open and honest with people, and yeah, it's you know, it's a model I'd encourage everybody to follow. So this is a sort of ideal scenario for Lean Six Sigma, because we want something, we want to be dynamic and flexible, and we need to know that the tools that we can use to innovate. And so some people say, well, Lean Six Sigma is not for me, it's for large companies, automotive, it's not for small, it's not for the service sector, it's for manufacturing a tangible product. But you know, it's used in service, for intangible outputs, banking, communication, healthcare. So you can use that DMAIC process, and it is something you can use. Just mention another one. If Six Sigma doesn't fit your business, can you use it? Or if you feel it don't fit your business, use Deming, which is a similar kind of thing. We've only got 4 actions on there: plan, do, check, and act. So we'll look at, you know, producing a plan, determining the goals and targets, methods of reaching the goals. We do it, we implement the work to the plan, engage in education and training that's needed. We check, analyse the effects on the of implementation on the organisation, and then the last thing is we act. We lock in the improvement or decide on the next area, or we remodel it. So plan, do, check, act. You know, it just keeps on going. So, you know, it's plan, do, check, act, plan, do, check, act, plan, do, check, act towards improvement. You keep going, keep moving, keep going forward. And that's what we're saying, that if you're taking those actions now, be a recovery leader, not a follower, and keep going through that plan, do, check, act cycle. You're not going to get everything right first time. You know, hopefully you're going to get more right than wrong, but you're going to try some things that don't necessarily work. You'll only find out by doing them. You think they'll work at the beginning, but you know, hindsight's a wonderful thing. But if only 80% of what you do works, then at least you're getting a lot of benefit out of it, rather than constant navel gazing and not doing anything. So take action now, be a recovery leader, not a follower, and look at the actions that you can take. John was using the same quote that I was using, so from John Harvey Jones: planning's unnatural, it's much more fun to do something, but if you don't plan, failure comes as a complete surprise rather than being preceded by a period of worry and depression as you're trying to do something about it. We've all seen examples of poor planning. You know, this is one where, you know, the guys are putting up the bollards and, you know, the van's parked inside them. So how are we going to get the van out of that, the bollards that they've put up? And, you know, the door being put in, you know, straight outside an electrical cabinet on the street. So I saw an even better one actually, which if I'd have had chance, I'd have downloaded. I don't know if anybody else has seen it on social media, about one of it was a worker, let's say possibly somewhere in an Asian country where they've got less health and safety standards than us, but he's welding a barrier in place, a handrail, and so that he can see round the back of the handrail, he puts his head through so he can weld from the back, and then when he's finished welding, he realises that he's welded his head through the and he can't get his head out. And it's supposedly you know, it's not a setup, it's a proper you know, video. I've seen it on social media anyway. It's quite a funny one, but you know, that's poor planning. And yeah, they said there's the seven P's of planning. You know, proper planning and preparation prevents piss poor performance. So if you're doing that, get a plan in place, and then at least you know you're hopefully you're on the right track. So we've got the planning. You know, doing well. You know, enough said. You know, get on and do it. We can. Some people like to plan. Some people like to do. But you know, the do seems obvious, but some people don't actually get on and do it. So so it's actually do according to the plan or the process, so that you know, we're actually going to carry out what we do. So check as we're going along. Are we winning or losing? How well do we know how we're doing? What does the customer want? What does the company want? What do we want? You can only improve what you can measure. So if you're measuring something, you can then look at what the effects are on those measurements of the actions that we're taking. So why do we need measures? Highlight any potential problems, indicate current status of a process, drive further continuous improvement actions, set targets and goals, and quantify any benefits that we're looking to achieve. If you remember, I built this up in the last workshop, which is an example of what we've done with a strategic compass for the next 3 years, one particular client. Now what we're saying now is that in the current situation, what companies need might be a strategic compass for the next year, not for the next so next year, not for the next 3 years. So, and you might do something like, you know, this is where we are. So this is where we are at the moment, and we look at what are the things that are important for our business, and some that are down there. We put on. They're all going to be different for every business that you look at, but getting a strategic plan to recovery is going to be key. Looking at what the changes to the market are going to be going forward are going to be key. Looking at customer expectations are going to be key. So these are things that, you know, you really want to concentrate on and pulling a plan together. It might be looking at other things like existing processes, or your processes, whether they're existing, whether some might become obsolete after the current crisis. the people that you've got, what resources, what skills they've got, the culture, HR requirements. It may well be that some companies may need to bring, once they get back to work, may not have work for everybody who they had beforehand. They may have to look at what they need to do to reduce the workforce, or reduce the amount of time that each person spends and gets paid for. There are other things that we're going to talk about on the HR side with CAT that could be shared working arrangements, or there could be getting people to extend furlough or take sabbaticals. I mean, my daughter-in-law, the eldest son, not Dom, Dan out in Dubai, his wife's also on maternity leave. But rather than going back, she'd rather extend get unpaid maternity leave. She's quite happy to, if they want to, reduce their headcount, give her another 6 months maternity leave, and she'll go back in 6 months' time. More than happy with that. And quite often, unless you talk to people, you'll not know whether that's available within your workforce. But it's we're going to talk about those in the session next week with Kat. But what the HR requirements are going to be, health and safety we need to tackle, technology available, routes to customer and communications that we've got. What customer priorities we're going to put together, cash issues and cash flow. I mean, John's put cash before profit. I would potentially have done it the other way around, because cash also in there, I think, is going to be a key issue that we're going to look at. So I would potentially, when we're looking at these red ones that are your vital few issues, that cash might be one that is particularly crucial for your business. But this is a generalised format. And rather than 3 years, we're probably looking at over the next 12 months rather than 3 years. So your strategic compass is going to be how you're going to do these things over the next 12 months. So look at the initial starting position on each one of those issues, where we are now, so where we are on turnover, where we want to be, where we are with the strategic plan, where we want to be, where we are with the market, where it's going to get to, what our customer expectations are currently, and what they're going to be in 12 months' time. Processes, how do we need to change them? People resources, skills, people culture. So we look at where we are now and where do we want to get to, again, around each one of those issues, around the radial. And then we can look at what are the actions that we need to take. What are the actions that we need to take along those lines to get back to where we want to be in 12 months' time? There we go. So what actions we're going to take, and then as we've been talking about with measures, what are our intermediate targets? What's our targets for 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? So think about it in those kind of increments. We need to be looking what we want to do this month. How's that building towards the next quarter? What we're going to be like in 6 months' time, and then finally, back up to the 12 months. We'll identify what the vital few things are. As I say, I think I would have put the cash flow in there, and you might identify some that are particularly some that are particularly key to your individual businesses. So within Revive, it's an opportunity to reset the business. So look at your process mapping, capture the knowledge that you've got within your organisation, and within that, get your processes right for what they'll need to be going forward. Look at lean operations, standardising the work and balancing the line. The thing that I find here is most important, listen to what the voice of the customer is. Listen to what he's going to be wanting in the short term, but also what he's going to be wanting in the longer term or medium to long term, anything from 12 months onwards. Look at being agile, making the organisation flexible, so that, as Duncan was saying earlier, you can get an enquiry this morning, get a price back to him, get the order, and actually make it tonight, so that he's got it for tomorrow. And that's something that is a bespoke part. How agile and flexible can we be? And the way to organise that is by pulling it through the business. So rather than trying to just push things in at the front end, you pull them through from the back end. Using small batch sizes rather than big, and think about this in terms of your services as well. So you're not trying to service a lot of customers at the same time. It's giving individual service, and that means that you got to look at setup times. And again, it's how you deliver your service individually, how you can make it so you can get from delivering a service to one customer to delivering it to another to delivering it to another. So how you can change that time and reduce it. A lot of work being done in the past in terms of productivity of cells, and it also fits with social distancing. That if your cell is U-shaped with people around the inside of the U passing work round on the outside, it's also safer for social distancing, and with balanced lines, it's a good way of actually working. It improves your productivity, improves your throughput, and improves your value added per person per hour. And so the client that we work with is actually getting, I say, a third of the products with 25% of the employees. So based on that, he's got a 25% improvement in productivity, because he'd get 100% of his throughput with 75% of employees. And what he's trying to do now is work his way back to 100%, but bringing people into the new ways of working rather than what they were doing before. The lines are balanced appropriately, the systems are in place, so he's got visual management in place. And then the trick is going to be when he's got 75% of the people back and he's doing 100% of his previous turnover, then is to look at getting 25% more work, so he can then bring his final tranche of people back in. But then he'll be doing actually not 25%, doing 33% more than he was before. Yeah, I see Brian nodding there. I just got my sums wrong in my head, but yeah. So, but that's the concept of what he's trying to do. So when he gets all his people back, he'll actually have 33% more capacity than what he had before we all shut down. And that's why he was looking at it being an opportunity rather than a threat, because he's pared things back now. He's got his systems so that they are working effectively, and he's got the efficiency, so he's delivering what his customers want. He's doing that efficiently now, and so it's just building on his efficient model and not just putting back what was in place before. So the idea is, kind of keeping it smart, smart objectives. Hope people have come across these before. So when you're setting any objectives, they should be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. So that means it's a specific thing we're going to do. We're going to get £60,000 worth of work. It's measurable. We've got the measure on there. It's attainable. It's not something like, well, we've done 6,000 this month, so we're going to get 10 times as much work next month. It is an attainable. We might have been doing 50 before, but we now think we can get to 60. It's relevant. It's a relevant measure to use, and we say we're going to do it next month, so it's time bound. We've got an actual. So make sure all the objectives that you set in, what we call SMART objectives. So just a bit of a roundup from where we are now. We set off from our control and awareness grid, low control, low awareness. Go through the survival phase. Hopefully we get the awareness of what the situation is. We can then start improving the control on what we do in the revival stage. And this is what we're talking about now, getting that control as we're moving along the revival axis. And then once we've got the high control and we're aware of what we're doing, you can then start putting with the appropriate culture, then doing that automatically. So you're not having to deliberately do things, you're doing it because it's ingrained in your culture. Like with Phil's people and Duncan's people that I know, they automatically look for that continuous improvement, continuous adaptation, and that's when we get back to the awareness, sort of just doing things unconsciously, but we're still doing we're still in control. So in survival, we've not talked yet, but one of the first things was cash is king. What we can collect, defer, reduce, how we can manage our cash and build up that war chest. And that's what we're, sorry it's been a bit delayed, but we're going to do that one on Thursday with Claire. Communication we've spoken about with Stuart, who the stakeholders are, giving out that positive message, getting empathy and looking after our profitable customers, and we can keep communicating. We start looking at revival. We've done the vision and mission and current state and all the kind of building up our 3-year plans going forward, getting that plan in place of what we're doing for the business overall. We've done return to work safely, so we looked at home working, separations, barriers, PPE. We've now been looking at our opportunity to reset the business, hopefully listening to voice of the customer, what the customer is going to look at going forward. Agility, flexibility, pulling stuff through the organisation, improving our productivity, getting lean operations, standard work and line balance in place, and getting a plan for the next 12 months. So using the same techniques that we've got in our main strategy, but putting a 12-month plan together to get us through to the other side. We're going to be talking about leadership next week with Stuart, so setting the tone, what actions do we need, what image do we need, how we stabilise the ship and laying the foundations for going forward. And we'll do some more on SMART objectives on that, and also looking at some post-COVID HR considerations. What are the things that you're going to need to do? Consultation, changes to working practices, how you can put that in place, how you can get things, job descriptions, and if you do need to make any reductions, what's the best way of actually doing that? Hopefully we don't have to, but being realistic about it, some businesses will need to do that. So and then we're going to be looking at some post-COVID sales techniques as well. So Stuart's going to do another session then on improvement, on sales. So final bit, we'll be looking at thriving, how we evaluate and improving consciously, implementing that action plan, and looking at how we develop as businesses and individuals. And looking at our new paradigm. So what are we doing going forward? Whether our glass is half empty or half full. Have we got the opportunities going forward? Some companies are looking for them. Some people are not necessarily able to take them. But it's going to be a new paradigm when we get through this, and we need to plan for it. And there will be opportunities for people. So phases that we've gone through, our first workshop was return to work safely. We've done communications, we've done planning and strategy. This is the fifth workshop in the series of 10, opportunity to reset the business. We're then going back on Thursday to do Cash is King, leadership, smart objectives and management information next Tuesday, post-COVID HR next Thursday, sales the Tuesday after, and then finally on the final Thursday, how to evaluate and improve unconsciously. As I reiterate what I said at the beginning, more webinar programs are planned. If you give us any topics or suggestions that you need, we're all available for one-to-one chats, and this would have been John saying it'd been available for a 30-minute video triage on what we've just gone through. I'll throw that open because if I've not heard whether John's out of hospital or not yet, but if anybody needs any one-to-one catch-up, just give me a shout. The opportunity to discuss individual situations and how you can put your 12-month plan together. Just reiterate, we've got experience from the previous crisis in 2008 that we're hopefully bringing to bear to assist clients now. Links with Growth Hub, Skills Bank, etc., and any consultancy specialism that anybody would look to. So, rounding it up there, that's the formal part. What are you going to do now? Has anything stimulated what people are going to look at following today? Phil, I know you're doing a lot of this already, sorts of things going forward. Is there anything that we've gone through today that you particularly liked or thought that with anything that we should have done more on?
Some good gems in there, certainly, Mike, and I thank you for that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get onto the phone with our sales guy, who happens to be called April, and we're going to go back to doing what we've been doing for the last 9 weeks now, which is, if it's not revenue generating, why are we doing it? So again, I did see some value in this afternoon, and I thank you, the team, for putting it together. And I look forward to having a look at the cash flow and the financial management stuff in the next one. But my role is developing the business. If I don't bring in some new revenue by the end of July, we have to start dipping into reserves. And when you start dipping into reserves, you know what happens 6, 7, 8 months after that.
Yeah, so hopefully we can help you on some of the sales side of things with Stuart. That's his forte, not necessarily mine. I'm not saying I don't know anything about sales, but Stuart's done a lot more on that than me. So Stuart will be talking about that and leadership into the webinars we've got going forward. How about yourself, Ali? Is anything you've seen from there that strikes a chord?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Hello. Yeah. So no. Obviously, me being on my own, in terms of supply chains and stuff, it's all kind of on me anyway. But yeah, I could see how the planning my process is a bit more sort of clear, getting a bit more clarity in my planning, which would help me streamline my processes and not spend hours doing stuff that isn't as productive as what I could be doing. But yeah, I just need to look at my planning basically.
Super. And just to round off, Amanda, Jamie, are you anything that from today that you'd like to that you've seen that is going to benefit yourselves, or anything that you're going to implement from today?
I think it's a good opportunity because I've done some of these things in the past, so it's a good opportunity to sort of revisit, I think. And again, because we're setting up the business back up from a new way of working, as it were. So I think it is an ideal time, really, for me.
Good. I'm glad on that. And final one is Jamie. Jamie, are you there? Are you? Do you want to anything that you're going to take away from that? No, Jamie's not. I think Jamie might not be there. So, yeah, Brian, just to tidy up, anything you've seen that, from your point of view, you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. I mean, as you know, I'm fairly well familiar with most techniques there, plus a few others as well. I think if anything at all, I would have slanted it towards, rather than reducing overheads in terms of people, increasing agility and freeing up extra resource. So you're using what you've got better, rather than looking to cut the numbers of people, because that just cuts your resource. It cuts your ability to be agile, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to be realistic on this. We are trying to push do more with the same, but the reality is that there are people out there who are going to not be able to do more. So what they're going to be doing, and I know it's not what we normally advocate, but the situation is such that I think some people are going to need to look at the HR side of things. So.
I think I very much agree, but I think we always ought to be reminding people. We always ought to be looking at both sides of the coin, rather than too skewed that way.
Well, I mean, fully agree, and that is our normal way. We're always trying to get more with the same, and that's what I would always advocate. So, if there's any way, we can try and get more business for the same number of people, then that's got to be the way forward. Like Brian said, I've got to agree with that. So, and finally, Dom, from your point of view, anything that you'd just like to add?
In terms of the delivery, it's it's interesting around how relating everything that you've just gone back to, and in terms of my own clients I'm dealing with through Brook, it's understanding what they're actually after and trying to match that up with what we're trying to deliver and meeting in the middle. So it's it was interesting. It was good to put some theory behind everything from my point of view. That's never really been into kind of and had the experience of sitting in training like this. So no, it was good.
So yeah, that's what come back to is voice of the customer. What's your value proposition? How do you add value for your customer, and then do it as efficiently as what you can. There you go. That's a précis of a 1 3/4 hour webinar in 45 seconds. So I'll draw a line under it there, if unless anybody's got any more questions. So if anybody got anything they want to ask, put your hand up, or if not, so if you've got anything afterwards, there's John Miller's details there, and also mine on the screen. I say I'm sure John will be back in circulation fairly soon, but as I've not heard that he's got out of hospital yet, so that's why I've taken this session today. So apologies if there's been one or two where I've had to read off the screen a bit much, because it wasn't my material that I was using, but the principles are the same and what I originally designed with John. So thanks for everybody's attendance, and hope to speak to you all going forward, and as I hope to see you all with Claire on Thursday on Cash is King. So see you all on Thursday.
Cheers, Mike.
Thanks a lot. Cheers. Okay, bye.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers. Okay.